But let's move on. We're going to go from SEC to SEC. And Tennessee, they were a top 10 team. They are no longer a top 10 team. I believe in the latest rankings, they have fallen to 19 in the AP Top 25 poll. They just beat the Appalachian State Mountaineers 20-23 in overtime. They now play a big game against Virginia Tech, probably one of the only big games we have this weekend to watch. Brandon, Tennessee, they're kind of in a similar boat with the LSU Tigers to me, where I was watching that game against Appalachian State, and I'm thinking, really? We fucking hyped you up again, and this is what you're doing? Come on, Dobbs. We said, this is the year they're going to take the step. Tennessee fans in the comment section were like, this is the year. And then they do that against Appalachian State.
I was super disappointed. But at the same time,
because they should have lost.
You look for Tennessee and you finally think, okay, here they go. Last year we were really thinking, this is it. This could be, but it's like, what the heck? What the heck? And I couldn't. I shouldn't say I couldn't believe it, because I could. But I just think that when you look at the talent that they have, and you look at the, I think, possibilities of where they could go if they actually use that talent the right way, and if it all comes together. But clearly Tennessee isn't quite there yet. I mean, they're 1-0. They did get the win. They did not lose, but that was too close against a team that I think is not anywhere near the talent category of Tennessee.
And they dropped 8 spots. Pardon me. They fell to 17 in the AP Top 20 poll. So they were 11, dropped down to 17. And this is the big game for me. The big one coming up, Virginia Tech. And I kind of feel like also on that side of it, it's kind of like last year when I'm like, look out for Virginia Tech. Gonna do some things against Ohio State. And then what happens? Action Braxton basically says, whoop, Madden spin move onto the end zone. Cardell Jones does some stuff. I believe JT Barrett was on the bench for some of that game, or at least that's all I remember it from last year from his point of view for most of that season. But like Tennessee, I just look at it and go, really? And I know that fans of Tennessee are going to say, well, Ricky, shoulda, coulda, woulda, we won the game, but you should have lost. You should have lost that game. If Appalachian State didn't have a freshman kicker, if Hurd didn't luckily fall on that ball in the end zone after Joshua Dobbs tried to do too much to extend the ball over the goal line in overtime, you lose that game. An extra point, a field goal that could have been made by that kicker. And I just think the opponents that you have coming up for Tennessee, and yet again, it's kind of the same thing we talked about LSU. It's also the conference you play in. And it's one of those things where eventually you're going to see the SEC in full force. And guess what? Yeah, you might be on the other side, but you still have to play Alabama this season. So for Tennessee, it may be you can maybe get through Florida. Georgia's going to be tough. I mean, you have to play them. LSU doesn't. But you got some tough games. And the kind of stretch I look at is, they've got VT this weekend. You got to get past them. I know they're the heavy favorite to win in their home state of Tennessee. Then you got what should be an easy game against Ohio, but if you could barely beat Appalachian State, I'm no longer saying any game is easy on your schedule. Then after the Florida game, it's the Georgia, Texas A&M, Alabama stretch. That's the key stretch for Tennessee. That's going to be the key stretch. How do you come out of that? And right now, I'd say 1-2, maybe 0-3. Like Texas A&M surprised me week 1. I was not expecting to see what I saw from Texas A&M against Josh Rosen and the UCLA Bruins.
And, I think I think it's one of those things where you take a look at Tennessee and you want to look long term. You look long term and you think, okay, is this a team that I stick with, or is this a team that I say, you know what, you got to move on from them? And I think that they're a team that, if we're talking buy or sell, I think you sell them. I think you sell them right now. And I no matter what we may have said in the beginning, in the offseason, when we talked about them, things like that.
Well, that was before football was even played.
Exactly. And I think that for Tennessee, I think it's a repeating effect. It's almost like a lingering injury for a player. They just have lingering ineffectiveness, and that is a killer.
Well, I just think when it's this, like watching that game, my biggest thought, and this, you may be saying, well, Ricky, you're repeating yourself, but it was that big, was I was just sitting there going, holy shit, we did the same thing we did last year. The same exact thing to a T. Tennessee favorites to win their side of the SEC. Tennessee going to be led by Joshua Dobbs. Tennessee going to do great things. Then they come out and play like that against Appalachian State. Here's the good. And Tennessee fans, you've probably already roasted me in the comment section, which I will take, but here's my kind of saving grace to you. We can harp on this game all we want, say like, oh, they should have lost. Bottom line, they got the win. Put it behind you. Come out this week. Prove us wrong. That's the great thing about winning week one and escaping with a win. Put it behind us. Come out the next week recharged, better than that. Put it behind you. You know what? It didn't happen. For a loss, it might be harder to do that because now you feel like you might be behind the 8 ball. But Tennessee, you don't have to feel like you're behind the 8 ball. Like I said, I look at that schedule and Florida's a wild card to me. Like you mentioned them in the LSU segment, they're a wild card. How are they going to be once we get to SEC conference play? How are they going to do? But at Georgia, at Texas A&M, and fuck it, you can play Alabama wherever you want. Alabama will beat you anywhere on the planet. That's how good that they are. I think right now I agree with you 110%. If you're buying or selling and you have the Tennessee stock, fucking sell it. Just push it away. Say, no, I don't want that. I'll let somebody else take that.
Tennessee right now, the one thing that they certainly have going for them, I think, is their defense. I think they do have a legitimate defense, and I think that if anything this season, if they are wanting to remain successful, they need that defense to continue to keep them in a game, because that's what happened this past weekend. They won 20-13, and there's a reason for that. Their defense helped keep them in the game and held Appalachian State and that offense at bay, which it really shouldn't have to be that hard for Appalachian State to be held at bay offensively. But we've seen Appalachian State have some other big wins in the past, that's for sure. Certain fans will not be too happy, Michigan. But, I think that...
It was a great game, though.
Yeah.
That was a great game.
Yeah. It was a great game. But I think that for Tennessee, they need to quickly figure it out on offense, and Dobbs definitely has to take the next step to the next level, which everyone thought he was going to do this season. He needs to do that. The defense needs to keep them right where they are, because that is going to be the reason they're able to stay competitive in the SEC.
And before we move on, is there anything in this Tennessee segment that you think we missed, Brandon? Anything we didn't touch that we have to?
I don't necessarily think so. I think that we probably didn't give... enough credit to the actual things that they did well, but why would we? Because they didn't do that well. I think that, we talked about Dobbs. Jalen Hurd had a nice game. I mean, he had 110 yards and a touchdown.
He had the game winner. He saved the game for him. Put him on a pedestal. He saved your season, week one. You lose to Appalachian State, you're done. Capiche, get out of here. You're not making the playoff.
One thing that I think a lot of people were looking for from the east side of the conference is they were looking for that next level. I don't think people really got it. Kentucky and Missouri continue to be garbage.
Georgia impressed me. Nick Chubb's going to be good.
Georgia only impressed you because of Nick Chubb. If there's no Nick Chubb and you take away his yardage and his touchdowns, you're going, well, Georgia has to really kind of figure it out too.
Now that you say that, it's kind of the exact opposite of LSU. It's the exact opposite. I mean, Nick Chubb showed up, they won the game. If Leonard Fournette did that for LSU, what kind of a discussion are we having for the LSU Tigers? It's a completely different
Leonard Fournette still had a good game. Nick Chubb just had an outstanding game. And I am so happy for Nick Chubb after, again, a horrific injury that he had last season. It was bad. It was really bad, but he's been able to fully recover, and you could tell that he was fully recovered in that game against North Carolina last week, and it was really something to watch. 2
touchdowns, 222 yards, and the one thing I'm going to be, and I know Tennessee fans are probably like, why the fuck are you talking about Georgia now? But the one thing I just want to add on top of that, now that we kind of see that it's going to be Jake Eason's job, and it's not going to be this dual thing between him and Lambert, it'll be interesting to see how that happens. They're my favorite in that side of the SEC after week 1. I know let's overreact to week 1 of the college football season, but that's usually what we do, right? So Tennessee fans, anybody listening, I want you guys to tell us down below what you think about Tennessee. Are they dead in the water? Are they going to not live up to expectations for, to me, a second straight year? And what does that kind of mean for Joshua Dobbs, the kind of guy who we've all pegged as kind of the golden child for the Volunteers?